Hey guys, it's Matt. I just started to work on something. I opened up an email from Bill and I said, no, this is the video for today. Let me put that aside, what I was working on. We'll do that some other time. Talk about a picture is worth 1,000 words. Bill put this together after yesterday's video where I was making fun of the guy who was stuck in the airport. And I don't know, maybe he was even considering sleeping out in the airport because he had to get to Vegas to see some shows. It wasn't typically important. I just was wondering why the man didn't drive home. But Bill put this together, and talk about a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is a Midnight Reality episode by itself. Question: can Notnilc really shape society? In the 1800s, family braving whatever, a million deadly things to travel New York to West Coast for a new life. 2024, man frets braving holiday delays and cancellations to fly New York to Vegas to catch some shows. Answer: you tell me. He doesn't even need to provide the answer. So clear to us, but we're just one of those people to the people around us. In a famous document somewhere, it says something like this, if I can remember correctly: we hold these truths to be self-evident. Well, what Bill is proposing here, we hold this truth to be so ridiculously self-evident that there is something here, we'll call it the hidden hand again, shaping every aspect of society and culture artificially. And it's just to my friend Tony. Tony, if you're listening, hi. If you're listening, Matt, it's just how a modern society evolves naturally. There's not a shaping of where things go in certain directions in favor of one over the other. You're not one of those people. We're going to talk about all the ways. It's so obvious how basically you could throw a dart. There's a million Post-it notes all over the wall. This thing here is shaped every aspect of society and culture. Where do you even start? A whole channel could be dedicated to this one poster. Now, the first thing I thought about when I saw this, especially the family here traveling out west, is the complete fraud of the 1849 California gold rush. Looking at this family now, they don't look like they're going out west for the gold rush. So you did a good job, family. You weren't completely bamboozled like every other fool. It was completely cooked up. It's so obvious. Is there some gold in them there hills? Yeah, there's a little bit of gold. But in terms of how they used it to drive people west, I looked at this in a video, oh boy, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know. Maybe it was sooner than that. But the elements, I should look at it briefly for you here. It's so cooked up how the person screamed gold and then he ran out into the streets or something like that, if I remember correctly. There's gold in them dar hills. And if there would, you keep it quiet. You dig it up yourself. You wouldn't be running through the streets. And then all the news started covering it. And all the people like this were bamboozled to completely uproot their lives and go west under the false allure of gold, just printed in some newspaper headlines. Maybe they planted some gold in the streets, like throwing an inflated tire out the back of a white van, and then people went. And I can hear somebody yelling at me right now. So, what are you saying? Back at the classroom, put those spitballs down and say, why are they trying to drive everybody out of California now with things like, remember the Paradise Fire and how I'm talking about that deadly fire, the Paradise Fire. Everybody's being driven out of California, but then here they're driving people to California. I don't know the answer to that, but Bill's poster is correct. It's a shaping of culture. I didn't remember them talking about that in the Eyes Wide Shut party. I don't know why they drove people out there in 1849. We could, I could pause and speculate. It's not the point. We have thousands of other topics to get to. But there's like a major truth drop in Star Trek The Next Generation. I don't know if it was intended or not. It's still a truth drop. One of the episodes that closed whatever season, season 8, and then to start season 9, 2-part. Stay tuned next season for the conclusion. Data gets trapped back in San Francisco right after the gold rush. Remember, he's trying to put a device together and the bellhop is getting him what he needs, if you've seen that one. Well, there's a guy in the streets, an old man begging, like with a cup, spare some change for a 49er, spare some change, he's a homeless, he's down. Yeah, it's showing you he says, spare some change for a 49er. You went out there for a gold rush and you end up in the streets. It's showing you only 1 out of 1,000 people even found a flake of that shit. So in Star Trek The Next Generation, a truth drop. The only homeless guy in the whole town, I guess it's supposed to be San Francisco, is an ex-49er. Who was falsely allured to that part of California because of all the stories of How many get-rich-quick schemes have ever worked? Nobody ever learns their lesson. Actually, there is one exception to that. If anybody would like to start a hedge fund of sorts for this type of investment, it's a hedge fund that actually seeks out Ponzi schemes. I'm not joking. I'm not joking in any way. Hear me out. It actually seeks out funds that are completely fraudulent, like Bernie Madoff or Sam Bankman. What you do, all of them have to return 2 or 3 or 4 times incredible returns to suck you in, right? So you seek out what's potentially a Ponzi scheme. You make your 20, 25, 30, 45, 100%, but then you actually get your money out. The thing about these Ponzi schemes is they have to return incredible gains, or at least Bernie Madoff consistent gains through hard times. And for those that want to get their money out after just a year or 2 or 3 or 4, of course, they have to give them their money and they have to let them out. They want to keep the fund and the Ponzi scheme going for decades. They don't want like the SEC knocking on their door in the first year, right? And guys, one sidebar. I don't like to do sidebars. Obviously, I'm aware of much bigger Notnilc issues that could be surrounding Madoff. The name itself is more than a little strange. Old Bernie, Weekend at Bernie's over here, made off with your money. Yeah, I'm aware of this. And we live in a script, and this isn't my first rodeo, so I can't do that sidebar every time. You know, at this point, anybody that's been here for more than a few weeks knows my take on how this world works. So quoting facts from the newspaper doesn't mean that Matt's fooled. Okay, Matt, stop doing the sidebars all the time. So to summarize this point, somebody out there might be interested in starting a hedge fund that specializes in investing in Ponzi schemes, real Ponzi schemes. Now go get your Series 6 or Series 7 licensing or whatever that is, like taking the bar for people in finance, then submit all the proper paperwork to the SEC. That'll be fun, won't it? When the paperwork comes. Frank, we got an interesting one here. There's a hedge fund that's trying to be set up in Skokie, Illinois. Guy wants to attract investors that specifically wanted to go into Ponzi schemes. Right here in the paperwork. Should we grant the license? Well, we've granted the license to worse. You do all the paperwork, go all through the proper channels. Seek out the Ponzi schemes, get your 50% return, then get out quick. You can't beat that. I'm not involved in any way. Just an idea. If anybody wants to do it, I'm happy just making videos. So I just pulled this up. I have to read this about the false gold rush and the 49ers. So Bill makes a poster. Generally, we're going to talk about how this thing here, Notnilc, has artificially directed society and culture. And there's 10,000 things to talk about. We're still on one item, but driven by an element inside the picture. But, I mean, this could be a whole channel for the rest of our lives, just looking at how the artificial nature of how this Notnilc drove a certain element of society. In every single case, your best friend or your family would think you're crazy for proposing this. When it's so artificial. I mean, look at this. Let me just read this to you. The California Gold Rush, 1848 to 1855, was a gold rush that began on January 24, 1848, when gold was found by James W. Marshall at Sutter's Mill in Coloma, California. The news of gold brought approximately 300,000 people to California from the rest of the United States and abroad. Somebody came from abroad? That's a real sucker. The sudden influx of gold into the money supply. Oh, sure. Here we go. The elements that we see right through that your family will be like, you people are crazy. The sudden influx of gold into the money supply reinvigorated the American economy. The sudden population increase allowed California to go rapidly to statehood in the Compromise of 1850. The fraud of 1848. The gold rush had severe effects on Native Californians and accelerated the Native American population's decline from disease, starvation, and the California genocide. See, we've talked about this many times. Notnilc never gets one outcome. It has its main goal that it's shooting for, but it always gets a second, third, or fourth outcome that it was looking for. I mean, look, drove indigenous populations out, killed off indigenous populations in Northern California. Had something to do with the money supply and an excuse to reinvigorate. Well, they had the gold already. Oh, the gold from the hills. Look what it's doing for the economy. So people understand they're going to make this move and that move. It all made sense. Oh, the gold is coming into the American economy from everybody digging in the hills when they had it already. They had it since whatever Bill Cooper called Mystery Babylon. They had it the whole time. Of course they did. Are you kidding me? What an absolute joke. Look at all the outcomes under the guise of the gold rush. What an absolute joke. And people would call us conspiracy people. I call them idiots. It goes right back to Bill's poster that I showed you again yesterday, the Baphomet meeting. I'll try to remember to insert it, but you know the poster. I mean, and here's what we want to do, folks, regarding any, he's talking to the minions, all in the form of some sort of primate. George Soros is in the form of orangutan. The ghost of Al Gore is in the form of a small chimpanzee. Okay, here's what we need to do to California. First off, all these outcomes have to be done very, very quickly. Anybody listening has any ideas, including the intern there, you're done getting coffee, you can participate as well. We need 300,000 people or more into California very quickly. We need to drive out the indigenous. Those sons of bitches. We need them out. Yes? Did you want to participate? You in the front. Right? Yeah. Getting the people there will get them out. It'll accomplish one and the same. It's not a separate. I agree. Just getting more than 300,000 people there, the way we've demonized the indigenous peoples, if we get the people there, the people themselves will do the work for us and get them out or bring the disease or whatever. It's a good point. If we can get the people there, the indigenous problem goes away. It's not a separate line item. Now, we need California as a state as soon as possible. And we can't just do it. People know it's nothing but tumbleweed now. We need enough people out there because we need to make it a state. And the last item, as it's stated here, I'm looking at Wikipedia, but this would have been done in the Baphomet meeting. We need to reinvigorate the American economy. Well, we can do that at any time. We need an excuse or a reason why the American economy is being reinvigorated. Remember, all you minion orangutans, gorillas, and chimps, we always have to keep up the appearance of believability. We can do whatever we want, for the most part, whenever we want. It needs to be believed in by the great unwashed. See that? So we need to reinvigorate the American economy. Yes, I know we have all the gold sitting in warehouses. I know we've had it since what Bill Cooper talked about, Mystery Babylon, or before the Great Pyramid was constructed. I know we have all the gold. We need an excuse to introduce. Okay, you understand the words are coming out of my mouth. Yeah, you in the back, you have an idea. You fake a gold rush. You get hundreds of thousands of people to drop everything they're doing because you claim there's gold in the hills. That's fucking genius. What's your name? Little George. You're going to go places, Little George Soros. One of the greatest truth drops in Gangs of New York, the Tammany official, Tammany political official, whatever his title was or whatever. He wasn't the mayor, but he says, God, do it yourselves. You own the crushes. No, heck no, Bill. The appearance of the law must be maintained, especially when it's being broken. The appearance of these moves that the Notnilc makes being legitimate must be maintained, especially when it's not and it's artificial. This thing here that's with us, if it ever does have backroom creepy boardroom meetings, I mean, its first tenet is this system we have here must be believed in. And they say to their minions, we have nothing if people don't. That's why it's so surprising that they're pushing so quickly and their presentation is broken down into clown show. It's the only thing that concerns me from time to time. And we obviously it's just put a certain way so you understand where I'm coming from. There's, I'm with the no consequences people at this point. There's nothing that concerns us. If something came around the side of the moon, I don't really care at this point. But in other words, they know that their first tenet needs to be that the moves in society need to be believed in, yet they're moving so quickly. Things I don't understand, but it's like they know their power falls at the age of end of Pisces, and they lose this and that if Aquarius comes, and they're trying to put things in place or race to the finish line. It's weird because it seems to be, but I can hear somebody screaming at me. Well, Matt, they haven't sacrificed believability. As crazy as it is, say Bruce decides to be something else, and that just comes in 12 years, and we say that's just not possible for that to invade society and invade schools in 12 to 15 years. It's not possible in a real world. And somebody's yelling at me saying, well, everybody on the ship accepts it. They know exactly what people on the ship accept. They can read every tweet. They can read every email. They can check the Whopper computer as its finger on the pulse of, quote, the American public in the West, second by second. So if the people are buying it, whatever spell they've cast or whatever technology, then they can keep upping it. And their real-time feedback is such that if people don't buy it, they'll know instantly, and then they can immediately back off. Back to the 49ers and the gold rush, let me read you part of this paragraph. The effects of the gold rush were substantial. Whole indigenous societies were attacked and pushed off their lands by the gold seekers, called 49ers. Referring to 1849, the peak year for the Pootie Tang Award Central called 49. Did it really just write that? Bot, we're not that stupid. Called 49ers, referring to 1849. Well, no kidding. You should have seen Pootie last night in the bar. Pootie's really good with the girls, too. So outside of California, the first to arrive were from Oregon, the Sandwich Islands, Hawaii. What the? Hawaii was called the Sandwich Islands in Latin America. So they're coming from paradise places to come to Northern California where there's not as much water, no opportunity, and fake gold. And idiots, who would leave Hawaii to come to California? I mean, that person should have their head examined. Hawaii in 1840, could you imagine the absolute paradise? Anyway, of the approximately 300,000 people who came to California during the gold rush, about half arrived by sea, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And they get their goals, of course, the indigenous populations, and California in September 1850 becomes a state, exactly what they wanted. Matt, with the Civil War coming 10 years later, roughly 1860, and California becoming a state in 1850 after this fake drive of people there because of the gold rush, you don't think that was don't you sense somehow? I mean, this is just complete intuition without any research. But I know California did send troops in to aid the Union in the Civil War and fought the Confederacy in certain parts of the West. But don't you just get a sense that they wanted California to be a state before the Civil War? Well, Matt, that would imply they knew the Civil War was coming. Oh, yes, it would. No, I don't know what that award is. It's not a Pootie Tang Award, but that's good. Yeah, that would imply that. Are you new here? You think what happened at Fort Sumter or whatever they said, you think that just caught everybody off guard? Did Albert Pike write about that 40 years before it happened? Probably. But because of that timing, Albert Pike would have to be in maybe elementary school. But we wrote in a journal in elementary school. Remember those black and white journals? Black and white journals. Remember that you carry them? We have to write in our journal. Here's the theme. Albert, what are you writing about? Let me see that. Give that to me. Put that spitball down. This is very interesting, Mr. Pike. There will be a civil war in the United States, roughly 1860. There's something new, Albert, called a science fiction writer. Are you aware of what that is? Is that what you are trying to be here? Is that what this is, Albert? Science fiction? No, I don't know what that is. Science fiction. This is actually going to come true. What? You think this is going to? I know it's going to come true. Are you go to the principal's office? You're mentally deranged. Oh boy, look at this. Oh no. At the beginning of the gold rush, there were no property rights. Different ways of staking your claim. Problem, reaction, Hegelian dialectic with crushed ice, solution. Government has to come in and decide on property laws and rights and how one can stake a claim and how big corporations can gobble up as much as possible in their own name. Now, once you got that many people in California, you can start thinking about a transcontinental railroad and more corporations to feed, although that wasn't till the late 1860s, far after. There's something that got in the way that had to be dealt with called the Civil War, what Albert wrote about in his little black and white journal. That had to be dealt then. But you don't, Matt, you don't think they had ideas for the transcontinental railroad back even before they drove people out into the fake gold rush? Of course, that's what I believe. Are you new here, sir? I've got to pause for a second and address one thing kind of seriously. There's a small group, or anybody stumbling upon this is insane. Everything in this world isn't planned and conspiracy and this and that, and it is and it isn't, okay? Lou's nice and he's tough. It is and it is not. There's a script that plays out in this reality, a script that needs to be fulfilled. There is no doubt about that if you're new. I don't have time to take you aside, put you in the back room, and explain it all to you. You got to hang out here for a while. We live inside a script. Most people that put forth what the script calls for are not in on it. This is bad when we show the Baphomet meeting and all the primates in the meeting and let him speak. And it's not all backroom coordination among men waiting for their Subway sandwiches. This group here on the frequency carries out the script of this reality, carries out what the Notnilc wants without 99 point whatever % of them knowing that they're following a script. Now, if this is new to you, that is one of the craziest things of all time. But do I sound crazy to you? It's through 15 years of observation, we know this to be true. If you're not fulfilling a script, well, congratulations. You're amongst a select tiny group that is not. And even we have to guard that even we may be. The truth community is fulfilling a script in general. Of course it is. We still could be. At least we're aware that it exists. And then therefore we can take actions to put our cue cards down if in fact we still have those cue cards in our hands. Look at this horse shit, continuing to read from Wikipedia. Some of these 48ers, as the earliest gold seekers were sometimes called, 48ers, were able to collect large amounts of easily accessible gold, in some cases thousands of dollars worth each day. Oh, bullshit. That's people throwing inflated tires out the back of vans. In this case, lumps of gold, but pyrite, fool's gold, throwing lumps of it out the back of the train or something. Well, yeah, of course. Well, this is Bernie Madoff all over again. It's not nobody made no money. You have to get a lot of people making a lot of money early on. It says here only a small number, probably fewer than 500, traveled over land from the United States that year to get out there from land. The others were called Argonauts and came from the sea. And these were the 48ers that came first, making thousands of dollars. Well, of course they have to succeed. They have to be used to spread the word that everybody's getting rich. You can't have the first guy say, there ain't nothing here but dust, bunnies, and tumbleweed. That wouldn't go well. It's Bernie Madoff. The first few investors get rich. That brings everybody else in. These schemes are as old as the hill, folks. Wait a second. What are you suggesting, Mr. Narrator, you conspiracy theorist son of a beach, that the gold was either there or it wasn't? Then you say it wasn't, but then it was there. But if it really isn't there, but then it was there, and the initial investors had to get rich, then you're suggesting it was planted in some way? Of course I am. Yes, of course I am. Bernie Madoff returned great gains to his early and initial investors, hoping and knowing they would talk. Of course, word has to spread. Did he put in a big billboard right above the Phantom of the Opera sign in Times Square? No, people talked. Oh, I just made 14% with Madoff. In the recession, everybody just lost 20. Well, I made 14. People talk. Of course you want to, you get this guy Fred over here, and this guy Ernie, and this guy Sam, and this guy Matt, and this guy Steve, and they're going to dig over here. Well, that night, send your sons of bitches in, put the gold in the ground. Seriously, make the early investors money. They need the word to spread, of course. These schemes are as old as, I said hill last time, like a derelict, are as old as the hills. If this was like a trial, present the facts. Look at the facts. Let me give the opening remarks. This group of assholes over here, this Notnilc, this thing you seek, Clarice, needs hundreds of thousands of people to go west, to come to California. For some sick reason, it needs the indigenous populations repressed and killed off, just like it does everywhere else. It needs California as a state. It needs an excuse to reinvigorate the economy when it's already sitting on the gold, to put the gold into the economy through a story that makes sense. It needs that. Well, if it needs that, the first 5 guys that get out there say, there ain't nothing here but dust bunnies and tumbleweed. Then they're going to talk. There ain't nothing out here. There's nothing there, Lieutenant. What's that guy from Dances with Wolves? There ain't nothing there, Lieutenant. Why don't he write? There ain't nothing there but dust bunnies and tumbleweed. Then they talk. Don't come here. No. You make those first sons of bitches rich as shit. And you would think greed would we got to be quiet about this. But they have their gold and they're going to show off their wares and they're going to buy what do the rich do? They just sit on it quietly? Well, the dark figures do, but most buy their Bentleys and they buy their condominiums all over the world and their luxurious homes. They need to show it off. And the Notnilc knows that those it artificially made rich in the opening year of the gold rush would show it off as well. And that would get more dumb sons of bitches to follow along after. And just like in any Ponzi scheme or cooked up financial scenario, the ones that get in first get rich as long as they can get out. The ones that come after get screwed. Now, I can guarantee you, as part of the plan to keep people there, the Notnilc had all this industry lined up to keep people there with jobs. And, wait a second, don't go back home. Stay here. We have this industry popping up. We have the railroad that's coming. We have this mining. We have these good jobs. What they didn't want was Ted to come out there in 1851, get set up in his little stake, his little part of the river. He's got his little pan. He's putting his silt or whatever. He's sifting. He's out there 7 days, 10 days, 14 days, 20 days. There ain't nothing here, Lieutenant. This sucks, man. I ain't got a flake. You know what I got yesterday? A horse apple. That's what they found in Shawshank. Remember, they were looking for alabaster or certain types of rocks. Man, he could make his king and queen and rook and chess parts, and the guy found a horse apple. That's all these people are getting in the rivers. Now they said, they don't want them to go home then, because the whole point was to bring people there. They said, wait a second, we have all this industry popping up. And that's what the history shows us, that it began to boom. And San Francisco grew into millions and millions of people. And then just your Aunt Ginny and the people around us just think it's the horse before the cart. The history that is presented to us is always the horse before the cart. It makes perfect sense that you have all these people out there, therefore the industry would naturally boom. Well, how is that? If you have hundreds of thousands of people that came out and didn't get rich in the rivers finding flakes of gold, they would go home. Did they come to California because they were rich multimillionaires and they just wanted to spend time in a river? No, they were probably, it's like buying a lottery ticket, probably down on their luck. The promise of the get rich quick. They didn't come to California as a 49er with anything. So when they're not getting rich from the gold, they would have to leave unless the jobs are already there. They can't wait around for the industry. Oh, there'll be industry here. You just put your tent up. You wait 4 or 5 years along the river here. You just eat roots and eat grass. The industry will be here. No, it seems like the industry was basically there. It was the cart before the horse. That's how the Notnilc does business, my friends. San Francisco or Northern California, or all of California, let's just say, could easily be the strangest place, San Francisco in particular, in the entire United States. You could examine any 15-year historical period, and there will be 100 things that just don't make any sense, that don't add up. I mean, there's so many things continuing on. Okay, we spent too much time here on the 49ers and that ridiculous story. But then as you approach the earthquake of 1906, okay, there's more strange things going on. But then after the earthquake is the amazing thing to me, how the city basically, you have pictures from 1910 to 1912 of a fully rebuilt city. How is that possible? Now, of course, I know all the potential conspiracies associated with the San Francisco earthquake, and I don't want to get into that. I don't really ever want to get into that again. Something happened, obviously. Maybe some in this community might disagree on exactly what happened. It doesn't matter. Something pretty big happened, and it's all speculation. Will we ever know? We can speculate for hours over here, speculate for hours over there. It doesn't get you anywhere. My point is simple. Something big happened. Whatever caused it, exact earthquake, something else, whatever caused the fire, nobody would stay in the city after that happened, or anybody that possibly could get out would get out. There was no insurance. Where did the money come from to rebuild people's homes, people's businesses? It says here there were 400,000 people in the city of San Francisco in 1906 at the time of the earthquake. Now, how many, I don't know how many people died. I'm just, how many people, most survived, of course. How many people would stay? Again, who's going to rebuild the business? Who's going to rebuild the home? Just the violence of the act. I mean, if you're from, say, the Midwest or the East Coast, you don't realize how strange and very terrifying an earthquake is. I was through 3 between 1996 and 2002. They say there's hundreds and hundreds a day that you don't feel, but 3 of some significance. I mean, you could feel the room shaking a little bit. Still, they were only, I don't know, 4.5 to 4.8. They were small. I mean, the Richter scale is a factor of 10 every time you go up a point. I think the one when I was in San Francisco was a 5 point something, like a 5.2, I think. We were up on the 11th floor, and the building's like on rollers, and the whole building, it's supposed to move a lot. That takes away the cracking, but the building was moving back and forth, even though the earthquake wasn't that big. That was the biggest. So regarding San Francisco in 1906 and how massive it was, if you were involved in that, you would be terrified. You would think an act of God or a demon is coming up through the ground. Or if you've never been in a big earthquake, you can't imagine what it's like. It's terrifying. The very ground shakes. People would have left the region. There's only one possibility. I mean, I don't think we should look for answers inside the bookends. We know this reality doesn't fit inside the bookends. You can't go to the toy box for the answers. There are no answers. But from a toy box perspective, the only thing that makes sense is government subsidy. Government, they can create the money now. They can create the money then. They have the money now, unlimited, never run out. They had it then. They said, hey, we don't want you to go. Here's whatever they threw at them to rebuild, and here you go. But even throwing millions of dollars in 1906 of these people, millions of dollars each. I know that's ridiculous because of inflation, but you still don't have the time to rebuild it all. You could give everybody $1 billion. You don't have the time to rebuild everything between the destruction in 1906 and the pictures of rebuilt San Francisco in 1910, 1912. It doesn't make any sense. It's not a matter of money. It's a matter of how many bricks and stones you can move around inside of half a decade. It just doesn't make any sense. About 8 years ago here outside of Philadelphia, 7 or 8 years ago, I think it was, we had a pretty massive ice storm. And I was without electricity for 6 days. When my electric box blew up 2 years ago, that was 8 days. But let me just give you an example. Every single generator in every single Home Depot and every single hardware store sold out that day, and you couldn't find one inside of hundreds and hundreds of miles. Of course. So imagine a rubbled San Francisco. You've seen pictures after the fire that followed the earthquake, etc. Whatever happened, I don't want to get into that. Okay, you need builders. Well, the one guy gets a builder, the next guy then doesn't get that builder. Where does all the infrastructure? It's all hundreds of thousands. It's no different than the reality breakdowns associated with the Taj Mahal and other structures. These people just sitting around, millions of, as the Taj Mahal says, 26 or 25,000 artisans just sitting around smoking hookah, waiting for somebody to say, is there anybody that can construct a dome the size of a football field to within a 1 millimeter tolerance? I mean, in other words, there just wouldn't have been enough builders people come in from all around the world. Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Come on. At some point, it's a reality breakdown, folks. And you get into the Pan-Pacific Expo or whatever, 1915. That's either a reality breakdown, or the history is so false and it's presented so false, then that's like a reality breakdown. They say millions of people came into Pan-Pacific Expo, traveled from all over the world. It would take a month to travel to San Francisco or more from different parts around the world. They're going to come in after they saw the pictures or heard about the carnage of what the city went through. They're going to say, oh, honey, let's go to the Pan-Pacific Expo 1915. Did you hear about what happened in 1906? It looked like the ninth plane of hell. Fuck that. We ain't going there. It could happen again to us, honey. We'll stay right here and watch Netflix. If I remember the history we're told, I think it says like 2 million visitors or something. 1915 Pan-Pacific Expo, which is like a World's Fair or something. I mean, the history says a ridiculous amount of people. It was open, 6 months or something. You know what it would have gotten? It would have gotten like 7 people riding up from San Jose on horseback. Oh, let's go see the expo. We can make it up there in 8 hours on horseback. And the Model T was out, and there's the Transcontinental Railroad, so there's probably a few cars roaming around California. But you can't take a car in from Denver. There's no highways over the mountains or anything. How did people it would take months for some people to even get there. And who would even want to go after they saw the carnage? And the local newspaper, whether it be in Buenos Aires or in Belfast or in London or in New York City, the front page of the newspaper would be like 1906, San Francisco resembles ninth plane of hell. The only thing not seen is demons flying through the air. And then they want everybody to come, and millions of people are going to come in 1915. Oh, sure. 9 years later. You know who would have come? About 5 people from San Jose. And about 3 people wandered down, hippies looking for weed from Oregon. We find ourselves pondering that same situation again. in terms of the 7-Eleven job application, you know that that was like hobo code. We haven't talked about that in a while. For what happened in 2001, it's like, who's the first person in that minion group that proposed the idea? Say, I have an idea for the century. What we can do? Oh, you have an idea? Like it's a reality breakdown. Nobody proposed the idea, right? Like it just happened somehow. Like it's so dark you can't. How does it work? Two people across a table. I have an idea of something we can do in New York City. We can just sense reality doesn't work that way. But so you do that same sort of thing. How does that work? Somebody's saying, oh, in whatever, pick a city around the world. They said 40% were international visitors or something. Well, how's that? Isn't it also a strange phenomenon? And I'm forgetting this. Is it like right in the middle of World War I or something? I mean, you have that issue. So it just doesn't, the history, of course, just doesn't make any sense. It's like, let's go to the Pan-Pacific Expo from whatever international city. So let me get this straight, hun. You want us to travel planes, trains, and automobiles, horses, cross this waterway, do this, do that. It takes 6 to 7 weeks to get out there just to see some asshole sitting at a table with a tablecloth and his little gadget that does this, or his little robot wind-up thing walks across the table 4 steps before it blows up. Who the heck? We ain't going anywhere, hun. F that. And the anomalies regarding San Francisco continued to this very day, 2024. Where people around the world say, how can this city be allowing policies that are leading to its own demise, destruction, allowing anybody to go in to a store and just load up shopping carts full of stuff and just walk right out with it. And if it's under a certain amount, the police won't prosecute. And they've announced they won't prosecute. So all the Target moves out and the Walmart moves out and the grocery stores and the Vons grocery store and the Safeway, everything moves out. Pam was in San Francisco. She said, this is even 2 years ago. She said the Target's closed, the one she was in, but everything was locked behind a cage in Target. Like everything, like deodorant was locked behind a cage. And I don't know, like I forgot to ask her, like, how do you buy anything? Like, why would a city allow policies that obviously would lead to its own demise? But a very similar thing happens to the movie studios. These videos I watch, mostly target Disney, as they should, but even the movie reviewers understand by now. Everybody knows, like, why does it keep putting forth crap and social justice warrior messaging and diversity messaging and things that really nobody wants other than a 5% fringe element? Nobody generally wants it. Nobody's going to see their movies. It's okay, we understand there are certain darlings of the Notnilc that sit at the quote, end quote, creepy table where money and profits is never an issue. But sitting back, if you don't understand the things about how culture and society is influenced by this thing called Notnilc that we understand, you would say, why is it continuing making decisions, Disney in this example, leading to its own demise? It's very strange. Of course, maybe it's not the greatest parallel between the movie studios and San Francisco, but in a way, it's similar. As this weird reality rolls on, the screen or the outer ring gets a magnitude stranger than we ever thought possible. I'll give you an example just based on what we were just talking about. Is there ever an interview anywhere with an executive at Walt Disney, Bob Iger, is he back as CEO, or Kathleen Kennedy, or whoever else is one of the big name directors or whatever, where right in the interview, Variety magazine, Rolling Stone magazine, I know they're all Notnilc. Who are you talking to here? I know. But just one person just say, why? We know now when you push this out, people don't want it. So the simple question is, why do you keep pushing it out? And just wait for the answer. It's like common sense issues cannot possibly be addressed at the screen level at this point. It's all broken down. We would kind of like, hey, I'd like to get in Bob Iger's head. If Matt, if you could have a cup of coffee with Bob Iger, would you like to ask him some questions? Yeah, I would like to. If he was down the road here, I'd like to go out. Yeah, I'd ask him some questions. I'd say, I mean, I honestly, I understand the level of minion he is. I would want to assess if his thoughts are his own, if his actions are his own, or he simply follows a frequency or radio station where he does not even understand. But how could he not understand that the audience doesn't want this? It's very strange, guys. That's one of the reasons I continue to watch these movie reviewers. One reason is just to see how much they're picking up on. And they'll never understand truly what's going on, but they are starting to come forth, some of the movie reviewers, and admit that there's no possible way that Disney or some of these movie studios care about profits. Now, I didn't think they would ever get there, and they're not there in general. Some are saying it's clearly you don't care about, and they say it in a jesting way or a mocking way. Clearly you don't care about profits if you keep putting out this social justice warrior woke stuff that nobody wants, and it's proven now for 7 or 8 years that nobody wants it. Clearly you don't care about profits. Well, that should be a big wake-up call for these people. It's not, of course. They're still in the ship. They probably will never dive off. Of course they're not going to dive off. But you understand, if I was talking to one of these movie reviewers and we were having that cup of coffee, I would say, do you understand that if Disney is making decisions not about profit, that the entire world is not what you think it is? I mean, it's not like that's a little problem with reality. The entire world is not what you think it is, Mr. or Miss Movie Reviewer, if Disney's making decisions and they don't care about pissing fans off and profits. We know they don't care about profits and pissing fans off. In fact, it's the opposite. They've worked tremendously hard to piss off. On purpose, they've tried to piss off their core fan base. These movie reviewers think it's just they're making mistakes and bad writing. I mean, it's so frustrating because it's so obvious. But I mean, they're actually starting to come around because it's so simple to see. There's no avoiding it. They're saying, well, they couldn't possibly care about profits. Well, then movie reviewers go the whole way. Then the whole corporate structure as it's presented to you doesn't really exist. I mean, then what else opens up? Maybe some of we crazies over here at the weird part of YouTube were actually right about something. All right, guys, so Bill sends me a poster, and I figure, we can look at 10, 15, 20 different things, how this thing called Notnilc artificially with its hidden hand moves culture into a sick, demented place that it doesn't naturally want to go. We basically got in one topic. It stemmed from, the gold rush and a few tertiary items. But yeah, basically we looked at one thing. You could do a whole channel for the rest of our lives just on the ways that Notnilc has artificially influenced society. And if you like, guys, you guys know this stuff, and I don't think too many people here were like, Matt, before this presentation, I believed in every bit of the gold rush. I don't think there's too many people here that would have said that. Most people here are basically old guard. But let me know in the comments. I mean, do you like this sort of in-depth analysis, even on things you could kind of say we already know? I mean, I hope so, because with my half page, what the hell am I going to do? I hope you like this sort of thing. You don't want me to cover entertainment news like TMZ or something, right? So let me know. Let me know if we should do more of this. Thanks.